Hey guys, it's Archon. Welcome to Inferno Friday. This week we got a pretty nice patch as well as a hotfix that I want to cover for you guys. And then I have some cool stuff to show off. I think you guys are going to like it. But let's go ahead and get started with the news. So of course this week we got patch 2.0.4 just came out last Tuesday. It went over some balance changes with the classes and then a few other fixes and tweaks. I thought it was a pretty nice patch overall, and we'll just go through it. I'll tell you what I thought was important for you guys to know. First off, I want to talk about they made some pretty big buffs to pets in general. So pets that are summoned by items had their survivability greatly increased, but much more importantly, they made a change to crit hit damage and how it affects pets. So up until this patch, the crit hit damage for pets has been capped at 50%. Pets can only get 50% of your crit hit damage, which is the base. But now your pets get the full effect of your crit hit damage, which is a really huge buff to pets. For example, if you have 50 crit chance and 250 crit damage, which isn't incredibly high, then this change will effectively double the damage of your pets. It's not a small buff at all, and for what I have seen, pet builds have already been fairly popular. So it looks like pet builds are going to be pretty buff right now. I'm worried they're going to be kind of OP. I think witch doctors and demon hunters might feel kind of obligated to go pet builds, but I guess we'll just see what they have in mind. You also might have noticed that the healing number on your character sheet has changed. It might have gone down a little bit. They say it's because certain stats like life per resource spent and I believe life on kill were giving too much to that healing number and giving players an inaccurate representation of how much healing they had. Don't worry, your healing is exactly the same. They just changed how they calculate that number. Let's move on to classes. Now, about half of the classes, I guess, got changes to their single target abilities that don't cost resource. They just decided that single target abilities that generate resource weren't doing enough damage. No one was using them, so that was a lot of the changes. That was the big changes for the Barbarian. You can read through if you want to. I don't want to take up too much time because we have a lot to cover. Crusader mostly just got buffed. Crusaders have been complaining that they're weak. They were super OP early on in the beta. Maybe the devs just got a little heavy-handed with the nerfs, but it seemed like they've been a little weak, and now they got all the buffs. So hopefully Crusaders will be where they are supposed to be now. They also gave them a 15% damage reduction from damage taken, that is. If you don't know, melee characters in Diablo take 30% less damage than ranged characters. I actually thought that Crusaders were considered melee. They're not. They were considered ranged until now, but now they're getting half of that bonus. So they don't get the full 30% melee gets, they get 15% because I guess they're a mid-range, and it seemed like they needed it. They were dying a little bit too much. The block mechanics alone, I guess, wasn't enough to keep them alive, but as you can see, Crusaders got a lot of changes, and almost all of them buffs, some of them just little tweaks. Demon Hunters was another one of the classes that got their single target hatred generators buffed, like Evasive Fire and Hungering Arrow. Still no nerf to Cluster Shot Loaded for Bear. So all you Demon Hunters, which I think pretty much all of you are using Loaded for Bear right now, continue using it. But I'm going to guess nerf incoming. Everyone's using it right now. Anyways, monks, they say they're where they want them to be right now. I'm sure they're going to make changes in the future, but they say they're pretty happy with monks right now. Witch Doctor, another class that they say they're buffing the single target resource generators for. They say witch doctors just don't have a lot of options when they're out of mana. So pretty much all witch doctors right now are stacking stuff to get them more mana so they can just spend all the mana. It's pretty much where they were in vanilla. So they just need something to do so that players feel like they don't have to just focus on mana regen. And it looks like witch doctors are really going towards those pet-based builds now. Wizard, a lot of people are saying the wizard got nerfed. I would say the wizard got fixed. Most importantly with Frozen Orb. Now Frozen Orb has been doing a lot of damage and therefore has been like the go-to skill for wizards, and it got fixed. I'd made a prediction about how it was bugged, and I was wrong, but I have a better understanding of what was going on, and I'd like to explain to you guys my best understanding, even though it seems kind of confusing now still. I guess Don Vu was talking to Jake, so I'm relaying some information that I got through Jake that Frost Orb is supposed to be difficult to get the max damage from. Frost Orb has a maximum of 3 ticks, one from the piercing damage, one from the shards on the outside of the orb, and one from the explosion at the end of the cast. And it's supposed to be difficult to hit an enemy with all 3 of them, but if you can, it should do more damage than the other runes, so it just has a bigger spread. But what was happening was the radius of both the shards and the explosion was too big, so you almost always hit 3 times with it, so it did a ton of damage. They decreased that radius, and they also made it so it didn't chill for as long. I guess that was another bug with it. So now it's really hard to hit all 3 times. You usually only hit twice, and it's pretty much on par with the other Arcane Orb runes. There's no reason to stop using it. If it was good for your build, it should still be good. It's just not going to be super OP anymore. Surge of Power wasn't working the way it was supposed to. It was getting too many procs, so they nerfed that. Teleport with Wormhole. Some people are upset about this, but I actually like the change. Pretty much everyone uses Wormhole on Teleport because it's pretty awesome for mobility, and it used to let you teleport 4 times for up to 35 yards each time. They now have reduced that to 3 teleports for up to 50 yards each time. So you can actually go 10 yards further in total, but it's probably not quite as good as it used to be because you can only go 3 times. You can't get around things as easily. But what it does is it makes all the other teleport runes a little bit better because they also get the 50-yard increase, up from 35. And so now maybe people will use something other than Wormhole, but not me. So I guess we'll see. Maybe Wormhole will still just stay what everyone uses. And then other than that, it was just bug fixes for wizards. Moving down the list, crafting got some needed changes. They really reduced the cost of crafting. Most notably, level 70 crafted sets no longer require flawless royal gems. They now require Marquise gems. Just for reference there, a flawless royal gem is 81 Marquise gems. So they reduced the amount of Marquise gems you need by a factor of 81. Pretty big buff there, and I think it was needed because we're all running out of gems from what I can tell, and no one wants to craft anything because it's just never worth it. So hopefully this is a step in the right direction. At least crafting will be good for some starter gear. You won't have to farm forever before you can get something that's not nearly as good as what you already got while you were farming. So I think that's a good change, but I think we still need some more updates on crafting moving forward. And those are pretty much all the big changes from the patch notes. You can read through them if you want to yourself. There's some small changes to poison enchant and other stuff like that, some of the quests. I was also very excited that monster health totals now use commas. It's so much easier to see how much health a monster has now because they have commas. Yay for commas. So that patch came out on Tuesday. A few days later, Travis Day released this blue post talking about their theory moving forward with hotfixes and also announcing another hotfix that went live that day. So I have to say, devs are killing it with these hotfixes. I think they're all spot on, and they're pumping them out pretty quickly. So he goes through some philosophy here. If you want to read through it, I think it's worth a read, but I'll just share with you guys the changes to keep this short. Basically, players have been farming uniques, which are the purple mobs, and chests. Even after the patch on Tuesday, that's been the most efficient way to farm legendaries. It's just killing Manglemaw over and over again, or Razorclaw over and over again, or farming chests on Act 5, or wherever you can at that moment. They nerfed them, and players were still farming them, and so they decided to just nerf chests and uniques. They got to make sure that the rifts are the most efficient way to farm, and although it's exciting when you kill unique and you get some good loot, or you open a chest and get some good loot, it just wasn't working. That was the best way to farm. So what they did is they nerfed the drop rate that uniques have, so you can't just farm Manglemaw and Razorclaw over and over again, and they nerfed the amount of chests in the world. They didn't nerf chests. They still want chests to be exciting. There's just not as many of them out there. But the big change, the really exciting change, and the reason that rifts really are worth it now is that they now give a 100% increase to legendaries compared to monsters you kill outside of rifts. So rifts used to have a 25% increase to legendaries. They've increased that to 100%. So it changed from getting a 125% drop rate in Nephalem Rifts to a 200% drop rate in Nephalem Rifts. And basically what that means for you is, in the time it used to take you to get 5 legendaries in a Nephalem Rift, you'll now get 8 legendaries in Nephalem Rifts, which really make Nephalem Rifts much more worth it. We've been farming it the last few days, and it does feel really good. We haven't done any actual testing, but I'll go ahead and just assume that this blue post is accurate in saying that it's 100% increased from outside of Rifts. And they also increased Kadala's legendary drop rate. This is pretty much just going to increase legendary drops overall because you're getting blood shards whether you're doing bounties or rifts. However, I think you probably get them faster doing rifts. But Kadala doesn't like to give legendaries, and after this hotfix, she likes it a lot more. And so you're actually getting legendaries, and it looks like the legendaries are now targeted to your class, at least somewhat. If you get one-handed weapons, you might still get something you can't use. It looks like demon hunters are only getting bows now, though. You guys can correct me if I'm wrong about that in the comments, but it does look like the loot you're getting from Kadala is much more tailored to your class. I've been able to get 3 of the legendaries that I really wanted from Kadala just from using blood shards in the last 2 days. So it's a lot easier to kind of pick out certain legendaries you want and go for them. I probably got pretty lucky, but it's definitely better than it was prior to this change. So both that patch and the hotfix just put us in a much better place. Now we can just play the game the way it's most fun to play, and it'll also be the most efficient way to play. Hopefully, as long as players don't find some other loophole around it. But we're farming rifts for the most part right now, and it's feeling pretty good. Moving on, we found a few good pro tips on the channel this week, and I just wanted to share 2 of them with you. The first pro tip I have for you this week is about the Unity Ring. If you don't know about Unity, it makes it so all damage is split between wearers of unities. And there's a pretty cool trick you can do. It has to do with the legendary tokens you can get for your followers, which make it so they don't take any damage. You give that token to your follower, they're invincible, you give them a Unity Ring, and then you yourself have a Unity Ring. So of course you're going to need 2 Unity Rings along with the token. But at that point, you're splitting all damage between your follower, and your follower takes no damage. So effectively, you're just taking 50% damage. Now Mikey from the stream has been doing this. He doesn't think it's quite 50% of a reduction, but whatever it is, it's a really big reduction. It makes you super tanky, and I'm worried it might be an issue because it really seems like it's incentivizing people solo farming. Now, of course, you could wear the set, I can't remember what it's called, Ashira's maybe, that summons all of your followers, and then you could still use this combo while you're playing in a group if you want to. Maybe you could even get 4 Unity Rings and only take 25% damage while your followers are out. But it's a pretty cool trick. If you farm solo, you got some Unities, try it out, get pretty buff. I think they'll probably nerf it, but for now, you might as well use it. And my second pro tip this week has to do with movement speed. I don't know how I didn't realize this sooner, but it turns out movement speed is like the worst primary affix you can get on an item. Now, what are you talking about, Archon? Movement speed's important. Of course, movement speed's important. You should max out your movement speed, but you should do it with Paragon points. Assuming you have the Paragon points to spend, it's really cheap to get 25% movement speed compared to getting your core stat. And if you look at the comparison that way, 10% movement speed on your boots is the equivalent of 50 int. Because by losing 50 int in your Paragon points, you could get 10% movement speed. So when you're considering what stat to re-roll, assuming you have the Paragon points to still max out your movement speed, almost always re-roll movement speed. Just think of 1 point of movement speed as 5 of your main stat. 10 movement speed is 50 int or dex or strength. That's it. It's pretty horrible right now because it's so cheap to get in Paragon points. So I'm hoping that they make movement speed a little bit more expensive in Paragon points or something to make that change, because right now, yeah, you just want to re-roll it. It's a horrible stat. Doesn't matter what slot it's on. Get rid of it. Well, wrapping up this week's video, I'd like to quickly go through the Archon Recommends section, starting off with this image that has been circulating the interwebs, showing how far a yard is in D3. I don't know how old this picture is, but I was using it yesterday because I have Audacity on my build, which increases damage by 15% to enemies within 15 yards, and I had no idea how far that was. I had no idea how good Audacity was. Is this only melee range? Is it a farther range? Turns out it's pretty much only melee range. And if you look at this picture right here, you can see that 10 yards is pretty much direct melee range. 15 is a little bit further, but if you're not in melee range, you're probably rarely going to get the effect of Audacity, it looks like. And one other thing to point out here is using those measurements, we can also try to figure out how tall Nephalem are. So if you imagine that demon hunter just laying down where he is, his feet being in the center of the image, and just try to imagine where his head would hit, I would say his head would hit right around the 10-yard line. I think that's fair. At least the 8-yard line. I think we could all agree. And so, turns out, I think this is a pretty big discovery, Nephalem are like at least 25 feet tall. This whole time we've just been giants walking around in a huge world. We're 25, like everything is big. So Diablo is like 100 feet tall. If a human was next to a Nephalem, you'd come up to like their kneecap. So I don't know how we didn't realize this. This changes everything about Diablo lore, and But now you know, and now you know why 15 yards means right in front of your face, because that's how it is when you're a giant. Okay, next up on Archon recommends, Diablo fans is doing something pretty cool. They have some forums going where people write out how many blood shards they spend, how many items they got, and how many of them are legendaries. And then Diablo fans has been compiling this. And luckily, they started this before the changes. So they have some data before the changes, and now they're compiling new data after the changes. Of course, I'm talking about the buff to Kadala's legendary drop rate. So they might actually be able to figure out roughly what the increase was using this. But at the very least, they'll get a rough idea of what the drop rate is now, and then we can see what we should actually be expecting, and we know when to whine and when not. So that's pretty cool. If you want to help Diablo fans out with that, you just go to this forum post. It's linked below in the description. Leave a post on there anytime you use your blood shards, and you're contributing to all of us learning what the actual drop rate is. So that's pretty cool. One more thing on the Archon Recommend section before I wrap this up. I'm a really big fan of Kickstarter, and turns out my good friend that I met when I was living in China is doing a Kickstarter now, and I just thought I'd give a shout out to him in case any of you guys thought it was cool. It's not really Diablo related, but it's called Orphan. He's been working on this for years now. It's a really weird, crazy idea. I hadn't heard anything like this before, but he's a really weird guy. So if you like weird stuff, check this out. He's pretty much making a film that's also an alternate reality game. So like a game that exists in the real world where there's clues from the film and from like blogs that are written by the characters in the film, and he's really just trying to integrate film into real life. You can buy any of the clothing worn on the show, and there's just a lot of really cool integration. If that sounds cool to you, check it out. If not, don't even worry about it. I just want to show you one thing before I end the video. I just want to talk a little bit about my gear, because some people have been asking me why am I using the build I'm using. I'm almost done building this set of gear, which actually kind of worries me. It seems like players are getting their full sets a little too quickly. Although, you know, casual players will still have a few months to go before they're getting their full sets. A lot of us are getting close to that point, and once we have all the legendaries we want for the set, it's really just about getting better duplicates. Just trying to get the same legendaries we already have to get slightly better rolls, and it seems like we're going to hit a wall. Like you're going along, and then boom, you have all your legendaries. Wall. Progression's going to slow down a lot, and I'm worried about that, but I'm getting close to that wall. Really, I just have this lightning build put together. If you want to look through each piece, you can, but it's just to really buff lightning damage, get a lot of procs, and then I've been using Living Lightning because it can proc a lot, and I can stun pretty well with it, and it just combos well. Shard of Hate is OP right now. It's not working the way it's supposed to. It says elemental skills have a chance to trigger a powerful attack, but it happens on every attack, so it's pretty much like adding a primary skill to every attack. I just found a Thunder Fury yesterday, but I haven't identified it yet because I'm waiting until I get back from vacation to identify all my legendaries. Big ID fest. I'll let you guys know more about that. But if you follow me on Facebook and Twitter, you'll stay updated on all that stuff. I hope you guys will stop by the live stream, check out this build, but let me know what you think in the comments. We covered a lot of stuff, and I'd love to hear your guys' opinion. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, hit that subscribe button, and I'll have another one for you soon. We can finally just farm rifts now, play the game the way it's most enjoyable, and it's also going to be useful. Efficient, that's the word I want.